Hey guys, thanks so much for checking out my channel. I really appreciate it. I'm on the move again. I'm in the airport super early right now if I look a little tired. But in this episode, I'm really digging into the latest on the Charlie Kirk assassination, specifically who the alleged assassin, Tyler Robinson's romantic partner and roommate is. His name is Lance Twiggs. There's been very, very little information about him, but I've got a ton of new info in this episode. Questions about where he is now. He basically vanished from his townhouse where he was living with the alleged assassin. Where could he be now? And new things that we've learned about him from friends, from people who actually knew him very well and also knew Tyler very, very well. Getting into all of that and the latest on the assassination. I know, there's been a lot of other news. Some people have moved on. I'm trying to stick with it and make sure to keep digging. I'm going to get into it in this edition of Brian Entin Investigates. All right, so my buddy Ben Ashford joins me now. Ben works at the Daily Mail. You may have seen him in a couple of my other episodes. He's an awesome journalist, but also my friend. And I was in Utah for quite a while after Charlie Kirk's assassination. And then I left, and then Ben, it just so happens, went to St. George, Utah, which is where Tyler Robinson was living with his roommate slash, I forget what they've been calling him, his like lover, basically. Uh,
Yeah, partner, lover,
Partner.
boyfriend.
Yeah. And that's also where Tyler Robinson's parents live, and Ben was there. Were you there for like a week?
I was there for like 4 or 5 days.
4 or 5 days. So, first of all, I never went to St. George. I just stayed near Salt Lake, near where the shooting happened.
Hmm.
What is, well, first of all, like let me just start with everybody wants to know um, where the roommate lover is. His name is Lance Twiggs. Do we have any idea?
Uh, no, we don't, but we have some hints. So he lived in this three-bed townhouse with Tyler Robinson, and we know that in the immediate aftermath of Robinson turning himself into police, the law enforcement went round to that property and they led him out and they took him away for questioning. And he has not been back there. And it looks like nobody's been back there because to describe what it looks like, there's lights on upstairs 24/7. There's journalist cards wedged in the door. There's Amazon parcels. His car's parked in his designated space. He's got he's a part-time plumber. His plumbing gear, like some of his equipment's on the back seat. There's a sandwich wrapper, an empty drink, half finished drink on the front seat. So whoever, if you look at that scene, it just looks like he left in a hurry and he didn't come back. He's not even turned the lights off. But we have had some hints. The sheriff for Washington County said in an interview that he's in a safe space very far from St. George, which tallies with. I mean, we've been asking our sources at the FBI, is he in protective custody of some variety? Because it would be such an obvious step because excuse me, he's a very central, significant witness in a politically charged crime. And they've got to make sure he's okay. And there's really strong feeling on all sides of this thing. So he would meet the criteria for federal protective custody. And our sources have not confirmed that, certainly not on the record. But they've hinted that something like that is in play. And that would tally with the fact that no one has seen him, no one's been back to that townhouse.
Yeah, you're talking about like basically witness protection program, possibly.
Exactly, yeah.
So he never returned to get clothes or anything, from what you could tell.
I mean, I don't know that, but if he went back, he didn't turn the lights off. He didn't. If he's gone back at any stage, he hasn't picked up his Amazon parcels, and he hasn't got his. He's got a rucksack on the back seat of his car. So if he's gone back to the property, he might have gone briefly, I guess, but none of the neighbours have seen him, and he's not driving his own vehicle. As far as I know, I can only make observations based on what I can see, and I haven't been there like 24/7. But the neighbours are saying that no one has been back at that property since he was taken away.
What did you say was on his back seat? A rucksack? What was that?
There's like a black backpack.
Oh, did you
So
say knapsack?
we call it a rucksack
A
in England.
rucksack? Like
It's a
R-U-G?
We'd say a rucksack, but I think you call it a backpack.
Yeah, I was like,
It's like one of these ones we have for work with all our gear in it, our
okay.
laptop and bits and bobs. Um, and he's got one of those on the back, and it looks like a sander or something. I couldn't really tell, but he's got some equipment consistent with sort of DIY or being a handyman. And we were told that he did some plumbing. So that looks to me like maybe that's some of his work stuff on the back seat. So he hasn't taken that, and half-eaten food on the front seat. It just looks like someone's gone in a hurry and they haven't come back.
So what were you able to, I know when you were there, you were able to interview people who knew him.
Yeah.
First of all, who are they and like what did you find out?
Well, the most useful conversation I had with a lady called Jackie Nielsen. Her children, she's actually a mum of six, and some of the children, in fact, I think all of the children, went to high school with Lance. And not only were they good friends and Lance would come over and hang out, she actually took him in for a period when he fell out with his parents. So he was actually under her roof. And she spoke very highly of him. She said he was quiet, but had a small, loyal circle of friends, and he would open up with those friends. He was like bubbly, smart, very intelligent. We're talking like a straight A student at high school level. And she considered him a really good influence. She said that if Lance was going out with her sons, she actually felt things would be safer, more adult. They'd get home on time. They'd come home sober, because she thought he was a very positive influence on her family. So he spent some time with her, but then he moved into the apartment we were just talking about. So I think he's been there for 3 years or thereabouts. And Tyler Robinson came as a housemate or roommate. And at some point, it said that they, became romantically involved and they were in a relationship when the Charlie Kirk assassination unfolded.
Did she say anything about him being transitioning from male to female?
Uh, she said that among his circle of friends, it was just accepted that he was gay. That wasn't a big issue. St. George is quite a conservative place. It's about sort of two-thirds Mormon. His parents were apparently quite strict, and that's what they fell out over, allegedly. He just said he didn't want to go to church anymore. There's been some reporting that he took drugs, so he had a bad attitude, or he spoke badly about Christians or conservatives. She didn't say any of that to me. She said that he wasn't really overtly rebellious. He didn't voice political opinions. He didn't push his opinions on other people. She said that as an adult, she knew that he had had some problems, and that those mental health problems, she said that he had allegedly taken pot, mushrooms. But she said that through all that, and she described him as a kid in turmoil, not a bad person, a kid in turmoil, who was struggling to sort of get over this bust up with his family and some typical like late teen, early 20s issues. But she was consistently saying that he was still a kind, friendly, well-adjusted boy. So she didn't see this angry, hateful side. And sorry, get back to the trans thing. She said that she had heard recently that he was transitioning. She had not had a discussion with him about it. When she last saw him, he'd grown his hair out, but very little else. He didn't have any overt signs that he was really doing anything. And there hasn't been, no one officially has said that he was trans, as far as I know. I think it's been said that he had an interest in ideology of that sort and so forth. But the charging documents all call him a he. They all refer to him as a male. Hence, that's what we're doing. But she said that she had heard he was transitioning, but in her eyes, it had just amounted to growing his hair longer.
Yeah, you're right. The charging documents say he, but the governor, I think it was the governor who first said that he is transitioning from
Yeah, for sure.
male to female, but we never really knew the extent of that, like what that really, I don't know, meant.
Well, her sons are such good friends with him that they've been interviewed by the FBI.
Oh, wow.
They've spent time with him recently. They know Tyler, and she says he was transitioning.
She
So I
said
think
he was.
on the transitioning side, I think we can accept that that's pretty much been borne out in the reporting. In terms of the FBI, I think it was two of her sons have been interviewed by the FBI, and that's important to get the order of this right. So if you know from your own reporting, what happened was after the shooting, Tyler had had a text message exchange with Lance, basically saying, I did it, and allegedly confessing. And after that conversation, but before Lance was questioned by the police, he had a conversation with this lady's two sons, I believe, via text message. So at that point, when Lance reached out to his two mates, he knew what Tyler had done. He hadn't turned him in and he hadn't been questioned. So this was that window where Lance knew about the shooting. I mean, she wouldn't tell me all the ins and outs of what happened with the FBI, which is understandable. But you can imagine a picture where Lance has just found out that Tyler's done this astonishing, awful act. And of course, like most young people, he's probably contacted his best friends and said, oh my God, you won't believe what's happened. And so it's those conversations I think that the FBI have honed in on. And the other thing is these sons of this lady, they were also part of the Discord chat. So
Mm.
I know you've covered Discord a lot in your reporting, and there's this kind of side narrative about the messages in the Discord and did they preempt the shooting? Do they indicate that there was a wider circle of people who knew about the shooting? Now, I asked her about the Discord, this lady, and she said that it was just silly boys stuff, nothing untoward. Her sons told her, she asked them outright, did they say anything political? Did they discuss anything? And she said no. So
Did
as far as she's concerned, is the Discord was just like a kind of boys will be boys, silly chat place. And it goes without saying, there's no evidence that her sons did anything wrong or knew anything. Just as there's no evidence, it's important to stress that we have no evidence in the charging documents to suggest that Lance knew. So we've had quite a detailed account from the FBI, and it points to Lance not knowing. So I
right.
know some people will say, oh, you guys are gullible, of course he knew, etc., etc. But we're dealing in facts here, not theories or not hunches. And the facts are in the charging documents, it does not imply that he knew about the shooting. And I know that our sources at the FBI have reiterated that he's a cooperating source or a witness and not a suspect.
Yeah, same here. The people that we've talked to have sort of gone out of their way to make clear that he is a cooperating witness. Did
Mhm.
did she say anything about Tyler Robinson? Like, did her sons have anything
Mhm.
interesting to say about him?
So he didn't go to the same school, and I think didn't know him as well as Lance, and she's never met him. So, for example, as part of our reporting, we got a cache of photos that hadn't been published before, and he wasn't in any of the pictures. And she's not spoken to him, but her sons are friends with Tyler. And she just reiterated really similar sentiments that she voiced about Lance, that her sons would never have expected him to do something like this, would never have expected him to do anything as virulently ideological as this, and were completely stunned. She's described the whole thing as just an unbelievable shock to all of them, which is as you might expect. But she said that one thing she said that one of her sons, who's friends with both Lance and Tyler, she said he wakes up every day wondering if the world is real. This, he feels he's in a nightmare. Two of his best friends, who he thought he knew, are now involved in this like global, atrocious news cycle. Yeah. So, but she didn't know Tyler anywhere near to the extent she knew Lance for sure.
Have her sons had any contact with Lance since recently?
So the contact was while Lance was at his apartment, aware of what happened because Tyler had allegedly confessed, but before the police knocked on the door to speak to him and to then search the apartment. He was taken into custody and they have not spoken to him since. He's not responded and they don't know where he is. And this lady said that they were all really worried about him. They're worried about, his mental health. They're very protective of him. They think what's going on in the media is outrageous. They think he's an innocent man. He's not done anything wrong. He's not accused of anything. And, the Daily Mail or News Nation or what have you are kind of boring into this guy's life and his past and showing his picture. And that's really unfair. And I can understand that. But at the same time, he is a central antagonist in this drama. I mean, of course, you know this, but there was this question in the text exchange of, oh, those bullets I was carving messages into. I mean, there are questions to be answered,
Yeah,
what's for dinner, darling? Oh, sorry, I was too busy
right.
carving political slogans in bullets.
Yeah.
We
No,
need to
the
know these
text.
answers, and that's why we were looking for him for so long. But I don't think, I'll have egg on my face if he turns up tomorrow and does a press conference. But my hunch is that he won't surface for a while. I think he's in some sort of state protection, but that's a best guess.
Well, a lot of people think the text messages are just strange. The back and forth, the way that they're speaking to each other. People thought they were fake initially, so people have been really intrigued with Lance and trying to figure out, who he is. And like you said, it makes sense. He's a central character. What about his parents? Did you make any headway with them? Are they around? Are they in some?
No, absolutely none. So a different reporter from Daily Mail spoke to the dad and was basically shooed away. This was before I got up there. Um, I knocked on their house multiple times. They have a ring camera. I presume that they can see me. They have, I don't know whether it's a friend or someone who rents a room. They do have people at the house, but none of them would take a message. None of them would speak to me. So it's important to say, there is this story that's been out there, and we've reported some of this, that he fell out with his parents because of religion and so forth. But Lance Twiggs has a public Venmo account, so you can see the payments on it, for example. And there's tons of payments from his mum and dad on there. Payments for music lessons, I think, gas, food, doctor's appointments. So even though they had this falling out, they're still paying for parts of his life and supporting him. and it's the family apartment. He's living in his family's apartment. So they
Interesting.
haven't completely ostracized him. It seems like they're estranged, but they're still part of his life. They haven't abandoned him financially. And the lady I told you about, Jackie Nielsen, she was clear. She said, like, I have absolutely nothing bad to say about Lance Twiggs's parents. They seem like very nice, polite, you know, um, good people. Um, I think she just said to me, look, he was a kid in needs, he was a friend of my son, so I took him in. But I'm not judging those people, and I don't know about what happened in those four walls or exactly why they fell out. But that's she said it was that they were quite strict about their Mormon religion, and he didn't want a part of that.
So it sound and you said this, I think, but so Tyler Robinson moved in with Lance. It was
Yeah,
Lance's apartment.
he moved in. There was another guy in there. We don't know who that is. So that's a kind of um, an area of our reporting where we haven't been able to fill in quite an interesting blank, but we don't know currently who that third person is. But in any event, the third person moved out, leaving the two of them there. So I believe it's a three-bedroom townhouse on like two levels, and it ended up just Lance and Tyler living there alone.
What about Tyler's parents? Were they first of all, do they all live close together?
They all live like 5, 10 minutes apart. Yeah.
And any what about at Tyler's parents' house? Because we had a reporter there right after it happened, and the road was closed. And I mean, what is it like now?
It's as if they've gone on an extended vacation. There's no lights on. Um, I mean, there's like a lawnmower just out on the side of the house. I'm trying to think. I think there was actually some Amazon parcels at their house. It's funny, as a reporter, you sort of in days gone by, you wondered whether people are in or not. These days, you can tell by whether they've got Amazon parcels. If there's three Amazon parcels, it means they're probably not there. But there was no sign of life at that house. Again, I think they had a ring camera, so knocked it a few times. Yeah, they're probably watching me standing around looking silly on the doorstep, determined not to say anything. But they haven't. They've spoken to federal investigators, of course, and we've heard the mother's thoughts about things in the charging document about her son became radicalized, but we haven't heard from them in person, the mum or the dad.
I'm curious what your perception was of the people in the town, because when I was in where the college was, it's obviously like very Mormon. Pretty much everyone I met was Mormon, and they like other shootings that I've covered, people will turn on the parents very quickly or immediately want to start blaming the parents or, oh, how did he get the gun? Or, they go after the parents. And it was
Right.
quite the opposite, I felt like, with everyone I was talking to. They felt bad for the parents. They were kind of defensive of the parents. They felt terrible for the family.
Mhm.
Is it the vibe like that in St. George also?
I didn't really hear any criticism of the parents. Um, I think St. George, um, it seems like there's a really strong sense of community there. And maybe that's because, there's so many Mormons there. It's very safe. It's very quite middle class, quite affluent. It just seems a really idyllic place. I know, like when something bad happens, everyone says, "Oh, I can't imagine something like this could happen in a place like our town." That's a very common sentiment, but you look around St. George and it just seems like so clean, so safe, such a nice place. It's set in the desert. There's all these mountains around. It really does look like a really great place to grow up. There's great facilities. So I would imagine my feeling is that people in St. George are just baffled. They're wondering why would these boys go off the rails so much? And there's nothing about the two sets of parents that suggest they're bad parents or they, you know, neglected their son's well-being. As I said, the Twiggs family continue to support Lance. and that's remember there's no suggestion he's even done anything wrong. So I think people in that town are probably just baffled by it because it's such a wholesome place. Something has gone really, really badly wrong, and I think that's the sentiment. I don't think they're pointing fingers at anyone. I think they're just like all of us. They want to know how a well-adjusted, polite, decent, seemingly decent kid could take it upon himself to do something unimaginable that has, probably changed the course of history.
All right, Ben. Well, thank you for coming on my channel again. I appreciate
Mhm.
it,
My
and
pleasure.
maybe we'll both end up in Utah together.
Yeah, that never happens. I think we've met up on like one or two jobs in the last 2 years or something. You go to one job, I go to a different one because you seem to be the main man at News Nation. They send you to pretty much everything big. Whereas Daily Mail, I'm like more of a staff. So I've got 6 or 7 colleagues who do this. So I don't get out to the West Coast all that much. So that's why it was so nice to go to Utah, like such a great place.
Yeah, I
So
got all your pictures. Like it's that area is so pretty. And
it
by
is, yeah. I mean, it's like to do it under more pleasant circumstances.
sure.
But we could say that about, most of our adventures, couldn't we, in this job?
And Ben and I, just so everybody knows, actually became friends on the Gabby Petito story.
That's right, yeah.
We everybody knows that I like was camped outside the laundries and rented the little lawn spot, but so did
Yeah.
Ben. It was me and Ben actually. Ben, it was me and Ben. Ben
Yeah,
also
I think we jointly paid the rent to
we
the
did.
homeowner.
Yeah. So we've been
Yeah.
pals ever since. All right. Thank you, Ben.
Yeah. Cool.
See ya.
Speak to you again. Cheers, Brian.